Hey, this is Rob with Veracity, and today I'm going to make a quick video showing you just how to set up an LRS and send a statement to it. So we're not going to use any of the statement generators. We're not going to populate all the sample information. We're going to just walk through it from the beginning to just make one from scratch. So I'm assuming that you already have an account and that you can sign in. I'm going to go ahead and sign in here. Let's see. So I've created a new blank account for just this demo. If you're on LRS.io, you might see that you already have an LRS that's been populated for you, and that's because we generate some sample data for new users. If you have a local install on site, you might not have that. Either way, you'll see something that looks very much like this when you log in. Create an LRS. You might see a little flag that says, do you want to make a demonstration LRS? Let's not do that today because the whole point of this is so I can teach you how to do it. Let's create one. Each LRS is going to be its own totally separate database. So we have to pick a unique name. Let me try demo. This is my development machine, so I've probably used that before. There's a couple other things that are relevant here. I'm going to accept the defaults. I think the defaults are good. That's why we made them the defaults. If you know what you're doing and you want strict conformance with the specification, you can check this box, but I don't recommend that. Let's see if I can create. No, so you'll notice demo is already taken. Let's do demo Friday. And that'll work. Okay, so I'm now back on my homepage, and you'll see I have one LRS allocated. This account is kind of in the free tier, and so I get 100 megabytes. I see that I've not used any of that so far. That's great. No statements, no attachments, nothing. This is a blank, empty database. First thing you'll see when you click on that to get into the management UI for the LRS is that we don't have any access keys. So today all I'm going to do is post a single statement into this database and then look at it. So before we can accept data into this LRS, we have to have some access controls. I'm going to click on the big red box that says you have no access keys. You have to create one. That brings us to the access keys management page, and I'll go ahead and create an access key. The access key is kind of like an API key. It's a credential that you use to connect your application to the Learning Record Store. Now, something that happens pretty frequently on the production environment is that people attempt to submit their LRS.io username and password. That actually doesn't make a lot of sense because each user might have multiple LRSs, and we really wouldn't want to be reusing the same credentials for different databases. That would be a big security problem. So instead, you have to allocate one when you first log in and create a new account or create a new database. Of course, we set this up for you when you have the sample, but for people who are new to this and doing it on their own, I think it's valuable to look at this. So let's go ahead and give the key a name. I'll name it display, if I can spell display correctly. There we go. There's a couple of options here that are relevant. Most important are their username and password. We generate semi-pronounceable words for you. You can put any string in there that you like. There's some upper limit, but it's huge. I don't really know what it is. This key is going to have read and write permission to the XAPI. That's something to keep in mind, right? You may want to have write-only keys. This is a pretty common use case. When you have learning record providers, applications that send data in, oftentimes there's really no good reason for them to pull data back out. And so you don't want to give them the ability to do that because why would they need to? You can disable that by unchecking write permission. I'm going to leave the defaults for now. And something that's also really very relevant is the limited read checkbox. If you check this, then if they have read permission, they can only read data that was sent with this key. So this is a way for you to start to segregate your data within a single LRS into different accounts that different applications or different users can use. Limited read just means that if I post 100 statements and Tom posts 100 statements, I can only read my statements. I can't see Tom's statements. And that's, of course, over the API. If I log into the interface as the administrator, then I can see whatever I want. I'm going to leave that off for now. It's fine. Let's just accept all the defaults and click Save. Okay, so we're back on the Manage Keys page, and we have a key. This is awesome. We're good to go. Let's go back to the kind of dashboard. We'll see our big kind of red box has disappeared. We're good to go. The LRS is online and accepting statements. So because the XAPI is a web service API, we give you a URL which you can send data to. And you'll need to read the specification if you want the technical details on how to do that. In our case, it's local Veracity IT demo Friday. In the real world, you would have LRS.io, but or demofriday.lrs.io. But I'm running on kind of a sandbox here because I'm making a demo. So we're good to go. What I'm going to do is open up one of the tools we have that helps you explore the XAPI data model a little bit and send a piece of information in. So to do that, I'm going to open Tools and go to XAPI Lab. This is a cool little piece of code that is open source and has all kinds of user interfaces to help you explore the data model. Before I get into the lab, I have to choose which keys I want to use to talk to the API. So I only have one key. I'm just going to click the big green box. So that brings us into the XAPI Lab, and I want to show you that credentials for the key I just created end up in the basic auth setup. You'll also note that we pre-populate the endpoint so that this tool is kind of ready to talk to the LRS that we just created. You could actually change these numbers, and even though I'm on the page for the demo Friday LRS, if I change this information, I could send it to some other LRS. That's something that you can do if you're testing things or what have you. It actually turns out pretty useful for developers. I'm not sure how useful it is for everybody. But so I'm just going to close that up and let it kind of be auto-populated. What I want to do is use the form to just create an XAPI statement. The form is kind of completely automated to generate the JSON, but you do have to fill out at least one piece of information in the actor field. So this isn't kind of a general XAPI tutorial. I'm not going to go over actor verb object and all of that, but I will choose a single IFI, that's an inverse functional identifier, for my actor. In this case, I'm going to use my email address. You can only have one. I can use email or the email SHA-1SUM or the ID or the account, but not and, only or. So I'm going to put in my Gmail right there, and you guys can email me at that address if anybody who's watching this is probably okay to email me. If I scroll down to the statement editor, we'll see that it updates in real time, and in this case it has created the proper XAPI statement. This is a very, very, very simple statement, but let's send it. All I have to do is hit send a statement. And under statements sent to the LRS, I see this is the response. So that worked out just fine. You might wonder, what is this crazy number? This is the statement ID. If you submit a statement to the LRS and you don't include the ID parameter, the LRS is required, as per the specification, to create one for you, and that's always in this kind of crazy format. It's called a UUID, a Universal Unique Identifier. So that's it. We sent a single statement. Let's go look at it. It's not going to be too much different than we're looking at here, but in the real world, you wouldn't see this because your clients are generating this information from their courseware or what have you. I'm going to open the XAPI data tab on the side here and then go to statements, and we'll get the statement viewer. So there's not a lot of information in here. There's the one statement that we just submitted, but here it is. Rob Chadwick answered example activity. You might wonder where example activity and answered came from. Those are the defaults in the XAPI Lab tool. If you want to play with that tool and put different verbs in there, different objects in there, go for it. So one of the things we can do, let's go ahead and extend the statement viewer with all of the optional flags. Most of this is going to not show anything in this statement because we didn't have a success true false. We didn't have a complete true false. But we do have timestamp, we do have authority, and we do have the stored date as well as the object. So the only thing that's really new here is this display. That's the name of the key that was used to generate the data. If you have multiple data sources that are streaming in information all the time, sometimes you can, you want to see, I just want to see data from this one, not actor, but kind of from one source, and that's the authority. Let's open it up. This little drop down will show us the statement. You'll notice that this is almost exactly what we sent over in the XAPI Lab. There's a couple of subtle differences. You'll see that we append the ID, as I mentioned. The LRS is required to append the ID. It also will append timestamp and stored as per the specification. You can submit some of these if you like, and they won't be overwritten. Timestamp specifically, you can submit along with the statement. If you want to, send it now, but tell us that it happened 5 hours ago, you could send the timestamp for 5 hours ago. And then we'll keep stored as, this is the time it went into the LRS's database. Timestamp is when you tell us it happened. If you don't tell us when it happened, we assume that it happened right when we got it, so that the values are the same. And then we have the authority, which gets appended onto the statement, which is, again, the same authority you see here, the display, the key that we used. So that's pretty much it. There isn't a whole lot to it right now. That is the absolute most basic tutorial we can do to create an LRS and then send a piece of information into it. In the real world, you would see this thing constantly flowing with all kinds of information from all kinds of different people doing stuff. But for now, this is the most basic possible example. So in future tutorials, we'll talk more about, what can I do with all this data? How do I get graphs over the display? Or show me information that happened just a couple of minutes ago. There's a lot more we can do with the information, and we'll cover all of that in a future tutorial in this series.